7 Security's arm slid across the doorway like a gate, and the words hit me harder than any shove. Not family, he's black. The screen at his elbow showed my grandma's name. The sign over his shoulder said, family only. My brothers stared past me like I was drywall. My name is Darnell Carter, I'm 27 years old, and I need to tell you what my brothers did to me. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. By the end of this story, you'll understand why I had to stand up in that hospital lounge, in that church, and later in that courtroom, even when it meant tearing my own blood story to pieces. I kept my voice low, steady, the way Grandma taught me to breathe through ugly. Sir, I am family. I got the papers. I had the healthcare power of attorney folded in my pocket in a thrift store envelope with creases like dry riverbeds. But even as I reached for it, the security guard repeated, not family, like a line he'd practiced. He didn't look at the document. He looked at me. He saw black and saw not. They lied. And not just about me. But that wasn't even the worst part. Outside that lounge, under the soft glow of Grady Memorial's hallway lights, Colin, the oldest, told Pastor Hines, we've been sending Darnell and Mother $6 to $7 grand a month to keep them afloat. He said $6,500 like it wasn't a number, like it was a moral. We handle it? He smiled that corporate networking smile. His wife Ashley dabbed imaginary tears. The nurse nodded, impressed. A lady from the chapel said, bless y'all. I stood there with holes in my soul so wide rain got in. I stood there with my rent paid late and my phone on one bar. I stood there knowing the last money I got from Colin had been a $75 check tucked into a Christmas card with a picture of his kids in matching Louis Vuitton beanies. The check had a cartoon reindeer in the corner. It bounced. I kept the notice. Truth is like water. It always finds the cracks. A lie needs constant maintenance, like a bad engine. And I was done being the belt they wore while the engine rattled. At that door, before the first time I was turned away for being not family, I asked, where are you watching from? If this ever happened to you, if somebody took your name from you, tell me your city in the comments. I didn't say it out loud then. I'm saying it to you now, because a lot of folks think this kind of thing is private. But after what happened, I know better. Silence is fertile soil for thieves. I went back to my studio that night with the fluorescent buzz, the place I kept my prayers, my work boots, and my medicine bottles half filled because I stretched them. The paint peeled in long flakes like bark. The box fan in winter hummed like a tired bee. My mattress sat on milk crates. I patched the side with duct tape where the springs tried to come out. In the corner, a busted space heater leaned like it was tired of, standing guard against the cold. In the kitchen, if you can call it that, my fridge held a half onion, a 2-liter of off-brand cola, some rice in a butter bowl, and a single egg. The pantry was ramen and the kind of chili in a can that makes your stomach fight back. I lined up my pills, metformin for the sugar that ran in our blood, lisinopril for the pressure that rose with rent, ibuprofen for the back that burned after nights mopping floors at the distribution warehouse off I-20. Some nights I picked meds over heat. Some nights I turned the thermostat up and told myself I'd split the metformin in halves. Respect isn't inherited, it's earned shift by shift. Dignity too. Between the Dollar Tree dish soap and the Goodwill coffee mug, I kept a shoebox of letters. The first letter that changed everything wasn't mine. If only I'd known what she was really doing, I might have seen the pattern sooner. But the paper I found next changed everything. Months before that security guard's arm, I'd gone by Grandma's apartment off Candler Road, the one with the sagging porch and the hydrangeas that refused to die. I'd been bringing her groceries and meds on my off days since I was 18. That day, I sorted her mail at her little table while she napped, the TV whispering reruns of Family Feud. There, tucked between a church bulletin and a coupon for catfish, was a letter from Social Security. It said, Representative Payee, Colin Whitman. Dated the same month, my mama went into the ground. I read it 3 times. The words did a slow roll in my mind. My hand went cold. Colin had put himself in charge of Grandma's checks. No one told me. I dialed him from the hallway, my back against the wallpaper with roses that had seen better days. He put me on speaker. I could hear clinking glasses, laughter, the echo of a big room. "Daddy, you're getting confused again," he said. He'd used that line on our father when he wanted to shut him down. He said it soft, patronizing, like I was a child, and folks in the room chuckled along. "I'm not Daddy," I said. "I'm Darnell, and I'm looking at a letter." In the background, a voice said, "Let Colin handle it." Another said, "He's always been dramatic." I stared at that letter. I took a picture, then another. Then I took the letter and slipped it under my shirt. That's when I hit record on my old, cracked Android. That's when I started keeping everything. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. That's when I knew I had to protect myself. If this happened to you, what would you do? Comment below, because what came next was me learning the maintenance schedule on a family lie. Colin and Ashley like to post pictures of themselves at Lenox Square, the little Celine bag on her wrist, his Rolex peeking under his cuff. Captions like "Family First" on pictures of brunch with grandma's name in the hashtag, even if she was sitting at home alone. In public, he said he sent between $3,000 and $8,000 a month to keep me and grandma healthy. "We cover about $6,500 a month," he'd say to the pastor, sometimes $72. If somebody asked for receipts, he'd gesture wide. "Do we look like we'd lie? That's a trick. Make the world think your face is your receipt." I built a real folder, manila, with a fastener. I slid in those two little $75 checks, one from 2018, one from 2021, each with holiday cheer in the memo. I added a screenshot of a $50 Western Union from Ashley that arrived after I changed a tire for her on I-85 at 2 in the morning. "You should be grateful for what you have," she told me when I said thank you, but asked about a late copay I'd covered for grandma. "We do so much for you," she said. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. I caught a recording of Colin at the nurse's station, voice low but crisp, the way he talks when he's convincing a client to sign. "We need to keep him out of the family area," he said. "He creates scenes." The clerk lowered her voice too. "I can put a note." Later, when I played it back, I caught the part that made my stomach drop. He told her, "He's not our family." Then soft, a laugh. "He's black." A lie needs constant maintenance, like a bad engine. If you don't take it in, the knocking gets worse. If you do, the bill gets bigger. The maintenance here was races and papers. It was whiteness wrapped like a clean sheet around the mess. I took the hospital file's HPOA to a notary I knew from the warehouse, Mr. Alvarez. Years back, in the break room with the soda machines humming, he'd notarized Grandma's healthcare power of attorney for me. He remembered. "I keep copies," he said, sliding open a file box with names written in thick marker. He pulled out a copy of the HPOA naming me, dated, signed, his notary seal pressed like a coin. "Mr. Carter," he said, "this is the real one." The hospital file said something else. There was a new HPOA naming Colin. The signature tilted funny. The middle initial was wrong. Grand's is May, not Marie. The date sat in a different hand. It looked like a child tracing around a picture. My back went hot. I may be broke, but I'm not stupid. I brought all of this to the community center multi-purpose room, the one with the polished floor and the scuffed baseboards, and the long tables where we take communion when the church is under repair. Ms. Loretta, Grandma's downstairs neighbor, came with her spiral notebook. Deacon Harris from New Hope Baptist came too. Kind eyes behind thick glasses, deep voice, steady. Colin and Ashley walked in late with coffees, wearing business armor. Colin smiled at Deacon, shook his hand too hard. I laid out my folder. "I just want what's fair," I said. "I have the receipts right here." Ashley's voice went soft for the room. "He's making this racial. Again." She smiled at somebody. A few people nodded. Colin picked up the $75 check like it smelled. "We give you so much you can't even keep track," he said. In his eyes, the private look. "You can't touch me." Then privately, leaning close so his breath hit my cheek, he whispered, "No one will believe you over me." "Family is supposed to look out for each other," I said, "not lock them out of a room when their grandma can't breathe." Ms. Loretta tapped her notebook. "I've seen what they do to you, Mr. Darnell," she said. He brings groceries every week. He paid that copay. I'll testify if you need me, Deacon said, voice low but heavy. This ain't right. Colin's face curdled. If you go public, we'll sue, he said, for defamation. They thought I'd just disappear quietly. They thought the truth could drown in polite nods. Where are you watching from? Has family ever betrayed you like this? What would you have done? Drop your city below. I didn't disappear. I walked the long MARTA rides, Route 21 up Candler, then over to Cortland, counting coins for the fare while Mercedes rolled past. I sat in the Dollar Tree aisle checking prices on blood pressure cuffs and thought about the photo of Ashley's new $3,400 purse. I cleaned toilet rings at the warehouse and at the church and at a condo building in Midtown, and my mind stayed on one thing, the pattern under the noise. Attorney Janelle Price at Atlanta Legal Aid sat across from me in a room with a humming fluorescent light and a poster on the wall about elder rights. You have standing, she said, tapping the notarized HPOA. You're the healthcare power of attorney. If the hospital ran with an invalid document, they got a risk issue. If your brother took money, we're looking at elder exploitation, forgery, theft by deception. We're going to build this, slowly, carefully, because they said you were confused, but we're going to prove you remember everything. I breathed. For the first time in years, I felt hope. We subpoenaed bank statements. They came in a stack that thudded on my table at home, making my cheap wood dip. We traced deposits from Grandma's pension and Social Security. We followed withdrawals, cashier's checks, to an LLC Colin opened the same year. He took over as rep payee, the memo lines, care expenses, medical supplies, transport, the purchases, a lake boat, a membership at an exclusive golf club, 2 payments to a Mercedes dealer, a recurring auto draft to a private school. Miss Price spread the papers like a dealer at Spades. This is a pattern, she said. Mr. Alvarez sat with us, reading glasses low. This is a crime, he added. Cousin Shauna came by the center with her own folder. I found where my college fund got reallocated, she said, pain sharp under each word. Uncle set it up before he passed. It's gone. The signature authorizing the transfers. Collins, spiky on top, sloping wrong at the end. I kept thinking maybe the next paper would make it easier, but the paper I found next made it worse. In the hospital's records, a staffer had saved a voicemail backup. Some administrative policy kept it. Attorney Price slid me her laptop. We listened to a recording of Colin talking to a nurse manager. Listen, he said, voice smooth like a TV lawyer. If he shows up, mark the chart with a note. Restrict access. He's not family. He's black. I could hear keys clicking on her end. I could hear how quick she went to make his words real. I took the phone and stepped into the stairwell. Concrete steps, smell of bleach and rubber. I slid down the wall and cried. I wasn't crying because I was surprised. I was crying because there it was. The line that sat under everything finally said out loud, captured, undeniable. Not family, he's black. When you grow up hearing jokes, you're supposed to pretend ain't jokes. The first time someone says the quiet part as policy, it knocks the wind out of you. I wiped my face. I called the church benevolence committee. Deacon answered. Son, he said, we got you. I called the surgeon's office and I asked for the bill. Grandma needed her pacemaker lead replaced. The number made my stomach twist, but the committee covered a chunk, and I emptied the savings I kept in a sock in my drawer, the one I filled $10 at a time from overtime gigs. I went down to the office, cash in an envelope and a cashier's check for the rest, and I paid the surgeon in full. The clerk gave me a receipt. I slipped it into the manila folder. The line on that paper meant I had brought Grandma something you can fold and show. Respect. Share this story if you think families should protect each other. Sometimes you gotta say it twice. We picked our day. The chapel overflow room. Wednesday, after prayer. Same room where Colin performed Generous. Same faces. I brought witnesses. Ms. Loretta with her spiral notebook, Mr. Alvarez with his notary copy of the HPOA, Cousin Shauna with her drained college fund statements, Deacon with his good suit, Attorney Price on standby with Adult Protective Services on speed dial. I put on my best Goodwill button down and ironed it on the kitchen counter with a towel between. I printed multiple binders with tabs, bank statements, canceled checks, texts, transcriptions. I printed photos of my apartment, the space heater, the empty fridge, the corner with the mattress. Not because pity, because proof. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. I rehearsed what I'd say. I practiced code switching like choreography. Yes, ma'am, for the patient advocate who had power. Let me finish for my brothers who had volume. I just want what's fair for everybody. The day had finally come. I walked into the lounge, that same soft light and laminate, the same coffee machine, coughing old coffee, the same sign that said family only, which used to feel like a promise and lately felt like a lock. Colin saw me and did that smile not intended for me. He started his speech. We've been sending $6,500 every month, he told a cluster of staff. We keep Darnell on his feet. His voice carried just enough. We cover 7 sometimes, he added for flair. I raised my hand. Excuse me, I said. The room tilted toward me. Security told me, not family, he's black, because someone ordered it, I said. I took the HPOA from my folder and held it up. Grandma named me next of kin. Mr. Alvarez notarized it. The hospital has a forged one on file. The patient advocate stepped forward, professional calm. May I see that? She asked. I handed her Mr. Alvarez's copy. He nodded, hands folded on his filing envelope like a Bible. She examined the seal, the date, the signature. She made a call. She looked at me, then at the security guard. She walked to a small printer behind the desk, and she printed a badge, white plastic, black letters. She clipped it to my shirt herself. It said, next of kin. I could feel the weight of it against my chest. I turned and walked through the family door, the same one that had closed for me before. I walked slow. My breath was steady. My legs didn't shake. Mirror moments. Opening becomes answer. When I came back into the lounge, I didn't raise my voice. I let the papers talk. I set down the bank statements under the cheap table lamp. I put the 75 checks side by side with Colin's texts bragging, we do 6K pluses monthly. I played the recording. He's not our family. He's black. You could hear the click of a keyboard. You could hear the dishonor bloom. I held up the receipt for the surgery. I paid the surgeon in full, I said, with my savings and our church's help, not him. For a beat, no one spoke. Then the nurse who'd been at prayer whispered, we had no idea. Someone near the coffee machine said, how could they do this to you? The patient advocate took notes, eyes sharp. We are documenting this now, she said, voice clipped, official. Who placed the access restriction? She looked at Colin. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping air. It was a miscommunication, he said. Out of context. A miscommunication is when your call drops. Racism is when someone turns your blood relative into a stranger and writes it down. Mr. Whitman, the advocate said, we will need your written statement. No, Colin said. The word cracked. Ashley leaned forward, tears forming on cue. We were protecting her, she said. He's unpredictable. I clean floors, I said. I take buses. I cook her oatmeal when her sugar dips. I bring her the good peaches from the farmer's market. That's my unpredictability. Deacon stepped to my side. This isn't a misunderstanding, he told the room. This is sin and a crime. His voice filled the space like a hymn. People nodded. A few folks stepped closer to me. It felt like when the choir leans in on the last verse and the harmony tightens. Ms. Loretta clutched her notebook like a relic. I'll testify, she said into the air, for the record. Other voices rose. Cousin Shauna stepped up, her eyes bright with hurt. He drained my college fund, she said, holding out papers. I thought I'd lost my mind. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. The patient advocate met eyes with the security supervisor. Remove the access restriction, she directed. Now, and please bring compliance. I didn't know what compliance looked like until then. Turned out it looked like a woman in a navy cardigan with a binder who could change the course of a day. Colin tried one more time, voice lowered to that special coded tone he uses when he's selling poison as honey. Darnell, he said, you don't want to make this ugly. It's ugly already. I said, I'm just turning on the light. The truth always comes to light. He stormed out, phone to his ear, the automatic doors whooshing like relief. Ashley followed, whispering, "This is slander." But it sounded like, "We're ruined." She wouldn't meet my eyes. The nurse I'd seen nodding to his lies weeks back touched my arm. "I'm sorry," she said. I nodded. "I didn't say I know. I didn't say you should have asked then. I was too tired to teach. Some days, survival is your only sermon." Adult Protective Services opened a case that week. Hospital compliance flagged the forged HPOA, took statements, retrained staff on patient-designated family and anti-discrimination access. The DA's Elder Abuse Unit called Attorney Price. The DA said words about indictments. I learned new phrases: theft by deception, forgery in the first degree, financial exploitation of an elder. I learned the weight of each, not as abstract, but as the sum of rice bags, and bus fares, and empty fridges, and late light bills, and worn laces double-knotted over holes. We had court dates. We had discovery. We had depositions where Colin kept his voice cool until the recording played. Then he sweated under his collar. He tried on new lines. I was confused. It was a clerical error. We intended to pay him back. Darnell can be volatile. We were avoiding elder neglect. No one will believe you over me. Each one hit the floor like a screw from a machine, rattling itself apart. In between, life didn't stop to clap. I still walked to the night shift when the last bus left early and the weather was mean. I still taped my shoe and tucked cardboard inside when the soul gave up. I still stood in the dollar store counting quarters for soap while I watched Ashley drive past in her Mercedes SUV, the one with the sticker that said grateful. I still got my hair cut once a month at Fade Factory when I could, where Mr. Reggie would say, "You heard about that Whitman boy?" Barbershop gossip runs like a creek through a neighborhood. They say he was using Grandma's money for his boat. Somebody else would say, "Nah, that's just folks talking." And Mr. Reggie would look at me in the mirror, meeting my eyes. "We know," he'd say quietly, buzzing clean around my ear. "We see you." Respect runs both ways. You need breathing room even in a storm. I took Grandma's sweet tea on days she could have it, sat by her bed while the machines made ocean sounds, and told her about the hydrangeas still blooming. She squeezed my hand, a small squeeze, but a squeeze. "You my next of kin," she whispered, words slurred around the stroke that had tried to quiet her. "Always." That was the only proof I actually needed. But the world asks for paper and recordings, so I brought those too. The grand jury indictments came on a Wednesday. Funny how so many things go down on a Wednesday. Best day for prayer, I guess, and for justice. The DA called. "We have enough," she said simply. "Financial exploitation of an elder. Forgery. Theft by deception." She paused. "There's more. The hospital is doing a policy overhaul. Because of you." I didn't cheer. I sat down on my bed and put my head in my hands and let a slow, old cry shake me. Not for me. For the years. For my mama not here to see it. For a 17-year-old me who took a bus to pick up Grandma's prescriptions and walked them back in the rain because he didn't have $2.50 for a lift. For the Christmas mornings where I watched my brother's kids tear open hoverboards while I fixed Grandma's robe and then went to a double shift. For the times I believed any of this would change if I just waited and smiled and did right. I showed up to court in my Goodwill suit jacket and a tie Mr. Reggie gave me in a paper bag. Attorney Price sat beside me, her hand steady on my sleeve when mine shook. Colin wore a navy suit that said money, but his eyes were a little wild. The judge listened. The paper spoke. The recording played. The patient advocate testified about the note in the chart and who placed it. Miss Loretta held up her spiral notebook like scripture. Mr. Alvarez swore to his notary seal. Cousin Shauna told the story of her drained future, and I watched the jury's faces tighten on the number, $32,000. The DA traced lines between accounts like a map of a war you don't want to know is happening. Ashley took the stand and performed tears. "We were under stress," she said. "He's making this racial." Again. The DA didn't raise her voice. "Who said, 'He's not our family, he's black'?" she asked. "Who requested the access restriction?" Ashley looked at her lap and didn't answer. Silence testifies too. Colin pled to some counts to avoid the worst. Restitution. Probation with a year in county. His LLC got liens. The lake boat got sold. The Mercedes had its tires chalked and then rolled away on a tow. The judge ordered Grandma's accounts restructured with safeguards so tight not even light got through if it wasn't supposed to. The court recognized me as HPOA, soul, with a checklist no one could write over in pen. I left with papers that matched the truth I carried in my bones. But winning didn't heal everything. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything, I heard in my head, as I stood on my porch and felt both lighter and also carved out. Sometimes victory feels like finally getting a splinter out. Relief, pain, a tiny hole where something lived in you. The church cooked that Sunday. Smothered chicken yams, greens with the turkey tails, cornbread with honey butter, pound cake so serviceable and sweet you can forgive a lot for a slice. Folks lined up and patted my shoulder. "We should have listened," one man said. A lady from the choir said, "We had no idea." Pastor Hines asked me to speak at a special forum on protecting elders and recognizing how racism can get written into policy if you let it. I stood at the front where I used to mop and said, "Family is supposed to show up when you're counting pennies for bread. If they don't, pay attention." I meant blood family and church family both. I moved to a one-bedroom that didn't smell like mildew when it rained. The AC unit groaned, but worked. I hung a photo of Grandma by the window, her eyes still mischievous in black and white, her hand pausing over a bowl of peas we shelled on her porch last summer, her ring catching light. I bought a secondhand table and a new mattress that didn't need milk crates. I still worked nights, but sometimes I took overtime because I wanted to, not because I was terrified. I started volunteering on Tuesday nights at the legal aid clinic with Ms. Price, helping folks understand the words that can save them. Durable power of attorney, representative payee, beneficiary designation. I told them what papers to copy and where to hide the originals. I told them, take pictures, keep receipts, write down what people say. The truth always comes to light, but you have to give it a lamp. I went back to Fade Factory and sat under the fluorescent light while Mr. Reggie lined me up. "Proud of you," he said. He didn't ask for the story. He didn't need to. My cut was crisp. My head felt cool. Outside, an old man read the paper and said to nobody, "They still trying us." Someone else said, "We're still here." Ashley never came around. She posted quotes about forgiveness between ads for skincare. Colin sent me a message through a cousin. "We're family. Family is supposed to be an anchor, not a noose." I didn't respond. Forgiveness is a discipline. It don't erase boundaries. It don't move money back into a drained account. It don't hand you your mother's voice to tell you she's proud. Some doors stay closed. Some doors swing open because you pushed and pushed until your shoulder bruised and someone on the other side realized you had the right to be there. Grandma's health settled into a rhythm. We went to New Hope on Sundays when she was strong enough. People stood when she walked in, even if it was slow, even if it was assisted. Respect for elders is a muscle you keep using. I wheeled her past the place where security had stopped me. The guard looked up. A different man this time. He didn't say anything. His eyes dropped to the badge on my chest. Next of kin. He nodded, small. "Morning, sir," he said. I nodded back. Not triumph. Just acknowledgement. You want to know the worst part? It wasn't the money. It was the seeing of me as less. It was knowing that a nurse heard it and typed it like any other instruction. It was the ease with which white folks I shared a last name with made me a stranger and knew the room would take their side. It was the day I stood in a Dollar General counting out quarters for bus fare, while my brothers rolled past in a car my grandmother's bones paid for. It was letting that become normal, not anymore. If you see these signs, sudden updated documents with odd signatures, secrecy around bank accounts, someone bragging publicly while the statements are empty, anyone who tries to control access to a patient with vague words like unstable or confused, pay attention. Ask for the papers, demand the notes, make them write down who told security what, record, take pictures, keep a notebook like Ms. Loretta's with dates and times, call legal aid, Call the patient advocate. Look your fear in the eye and decide your dignity is heavier than their shame. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're counting pennies for bread. It's about who sits with you on the bus and who stands with you at the door. It's about who tells the truth even when it burns their throat to say it. I'm not old, but I'm not stupid. I'm not rich, but I'm rich in receipts. They said I was confused, but I remembered everything. The truth always comes to light. Where are you watching from? Has family ever tried to erase you? What would you have done? Comment below if you've seen this happen to somebody in your church, your barbershop, your block. Share this to spread awareness. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story we bring from the shadows into the light, because I'm helping folks now, and there's a lot of us. I don't celebrate my brother's collapse. I mourn the necessity. Justice served doesn't sweeten every bitter sip, but it clears the glass. Community came back around me. The fracture in my family remains. A crack that won't close. But that crack also lets some light in. Dignified poverty sits higher than wealthy deception. I can look at myself in the bathroom, mirror of an apartment that smells like lemon oil, and see a man who didn't let a gate decide his name. My name is Darnell. I did what I had to do. And if you're living in the quiet of somebody else's lie, you can do it too. The door will swing open, not because they held it, because you pushed it and made the name badge print, and you walk through. Share this story. Someone needs to hear it. Like, comment, and subscribe so the truth keeps finding the light.